In the summer of 1896, the vast, open plains of Wyoming stretched out under a relentless sun, baking the land and everything on it. The Old West was a harsh place, where survival often meant a quick draw and a faster horse. Two young guns, Jack Turner and Billy McGraw, rode hard across the dusty landscape, their faces grim and determined. They were outlaws, hunted by the law for a string of robberies and shootouts that had made them infamous from Cheyenne to Rawlins. Jack, with his piercing blue eyes and a rugged, unshaven face, was the leader of the duo. At 26, he was just a few years older than Billy but had seen more than his fair share of gunfights and narrow escapes. Billy, with his freckled face and a mop of red hair, followed Jack with unwavering loyalty. At 22, he was eager and quick with a revolver, but he lacked Jack's hardened experience. "We need to get out of Wyoming, Jack," Billy said, his voice strained from the long ride. "The law's too hot on our trail." Jack nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. "We're heading to Utah. I heard it's different there, more civilized." They rode through the night, pushing their horses to the limit. By dawn, they crossed the border into Utah, a new state with a reputation for law and order that was spreading fast. The landscape began to change, the flat plains giving way to rolling hills and red rock formations. The air felt different, too, less harsh, more welcoming. They arrived at a small town nestled in a valley, its name painted in white letters on a wooden sign, Serenity. The town seemed almost idyllic, with neatly kept homes, a general store, and a modest church standing at its center. As Jack and Billy rode in, they felt a sense of unease mixed with curiosity. This place was unlike any they'd seen in the Wild West. The townspeople watched them with wary eyes, but didn't shy away or reach for weapons. Instead, they went about their business, greeting each other with friendly nods and smiles. Jack and Billy dismounted, tying their horses outside the general store. "We need supplies," Jack said, glancing at Billy. "And maybe some information." Inside the store, the owner, a middle-aged man with spectacles perched on his nose, greeted them warmly. "Morning, gentlemen. What can I do for you today?" Jack tipped his hat. "We need food and water for the road. Also, heard this place is different from the rest of the territories. Can you tell us more about it?" The storekeeper smiled. "Well, Serenity is a peaceful town. Folks here believe in living right, treating each other with respect. We don't have much trouble, and when we do, we handle it ourselves, without violence." Billy raised an eyebrow. "No sheriffs or deputies?" The man shook his head. "No need. We have a council that settles disputes, and everyone abides by their decisions. It's a different mindset, like you said." As they gathered their supplies, a young woman entered the store, her eyes widening slightly at the sight of the two strangers. She had dark hair braided over one shoulder and a calm, composed demeanor. The storekeeper introduced her as his daughter, Emily. Emily offered a polite smile. "Welcome to Serenity. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask." Jack felt a pang of guilt. These people were kind and unsuspecting, and he and Billy were bringing trouble to their doorstep. "Thank you, ma'am. We'll be on our way soon." They left the store, supplies in hand, and found a quiet spot near the edge of town to rest. Billy looked troubled. "Jack, these people, they're different. Almost makes you want to leave MB." Jack nodded slowly. "Yeah, Billy. They ain't like the folks we're used to. But we can't stay here. Sooner or later, the law will catch up with us." As they prepared to leave, a group of men approached them, led by an older gentleman with a white beard and kind eyes. "You must be the new arrivals," he said. "I'm Thomas, head of the town council. Mind if we have a word?" Jack and Billy exchanged a glance but nodded. "Sure, Mr. Thomas," Jack replied. Thomas and his companions sat down with them, the atmosphere surprisingly calm. "We know who you are," Thomas said, his tone gentle. "Outlaws from Wyoming. We've heard of your exploits." Billy tensed, his hand inching toward his revolver, but Jack placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. "What do you want?" Jack asked, his voice cautious. Thomas sighed. "We want to offer you a chance. This town believes in redemption and giving people a second chance to change their ways. You can stay here, contribute to the community, and leave your past behind. But if you bring violence, we won't hesitate to protect our own." Jack stared at him, disbelief and hope warring in his eyes. "You just let us stay." Thomas nodded. "Under one condition, you must abide by our rules and commit to a peaceful life. No more running, no more fighting." Billy looked at Jack, his expression conflicted. "What do you think, Jack? Can we really do this?" Jack thought of the endless running, the constant fear of capture, and the bloodshed they had left in their wake. Serenity offered something he hadn't dared to dream of, a chance at a different life. He turned to Thomas and nodded. "We'll stay. We'll try to change." The days turned into weeks, and Jack and Billy began to integrate into the town. They helped with the harvest, repaired fences, and gradually earned the trust of the townspeople. Emily, the storekeeper's daughter, often visited them, bringing food and conversation that lightened their heavy hearts. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Emily found Jack sitting alone outside their small cabin. She sat beside him, her presence a soothing balm to his troubled soul. "You seem different, Jack," she said softly. "Happier." Jack nodded, his gaze distant. "I never thought I'd find peace, not after everything I've done. But this place, it's given me hope." Emily smiled, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "Everyone deserves a second chance. You've proven that you can change." Their moment was interrupted by a distant sound of hoofbeats. Jack tensed, recognizing the urgency in the rhythm. He and Billy ran to the edge of town, their hands instinctively reaching for their revolvers. A group of riders approached, dust rising in their wake. As they drew closer, Jack's heart sank. It was the law, finally catching up to them. Sheriff Thompson, a grizzled veteran with a stern expression, dismounted and approached the townspeople who had gathered. "We're looking for two outlaws, Jack Turner and Billy McGraw. They've caused enough trouble, and we're here to bring them to justice." Thomas stepped forward, his calm demeanor unwavering. "Sheriff, these men have changed. They've become a part of our community. We ask that you give them a chance to prove themselves." Thompson's eyes narrowed. "I don't believe in second chances for killers and thieves." Jack and Billy emerged from the crowd, their hands raised in surrender. "We'll go with you, Sheriff," Jack said, his voice steady. "We won't cause any trouble." Thomas shook his head. "No, Jack. You've earned your place here. We won't let you be taken." A tense standoff ensued, the townspeople standing firm behind Thomas. The sheriff's men reached for their weapons, but Jack and Billy stepped forward, their hands still raised. "Please," Jack implored. "Let us prove that people can change." Thompson hesitated, the determination in his eyes wavering. Finally, he lowered his weapon and nodded. "I'll give you one chance. But if I hear of any trouble, I'll be back, and it won't end peacefully." The townspeople sighed in relief as the lawmen rode away. Jack and Billy stood with Thomas, their gratitude evident. "Thank you," Jack said, his voice choked with emotion. "We'll do everything we can to make this work." The days passed, and Jack and Billy continued to integrate into the community, their pasts becoming a distant memory. They found solace in the simple life, surrounded by people who believed in them. Emily's presence became a beacon of hope for Jack, her kindness and support helping him heal from the scars of his past. But as the days turned into weeks, Jack and Billy began to notice things about Serenity that didn't sit right. The townspeople, for all their kindness, seemed to have a strange, unspoken understanding among themselves. They never spoke of the past, and any mention of it was met with tight-lipped smiles and evasive answers. One night, as Jack and Billy were returning from the fields, they heard a strange noise coming from the old barn at the edge of town. Curious, they crept closer, careful to stay hidden in the shadows. What they saw chilled them to the bone. Inside the barn, the townspeople had gathered in a circle, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a single lantern. In the center of the circle lay a man, bound and gagged, his eyes wide with terror. Thomas stood over him, holding a long, sharp knife. "We cannot let the past return to haunt us," Thomas said, his voice cold and devoid of the warmth they had come to know. "This man threatens our peace. He must be dealt with." Without hesitation, Thomas plunged the knife into the man's chest. The onlookers didn't flinch. Instead, they watched with an unsettling calm. As the man gasped his last breaths, Thomas turned to the others. "Our way of life must be protected at all costs." Jack and Billy stumbled back, their hearts pounding in their chests. They had stumbled upon the town's dark secret. Serenity was built on a foundation of blood and sacrifice. The townspeople's peace came at the price of anyone who threatened it. They fled back to their cabin, their minds racing. "We need to get out of here, Jack," Billy whispered, his voice trembling. "These people are killers." Jack nodded, his resolve hardening. "We'll leave at dawn. We can't stay here." As they packed their belongings, Emily appeared at their door, her face pale. "I know what you saw," she said quietly. "Please, don't go. They'll find you." Jack looked at her, his heart breaking. "We can't stay, Emily. Not after what we've seen." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. But be careful. They won't let you leave easily." As dawn broke, Jack and Billy mounted their horses and rode out of town, the weight of Serenity's dark secret heavy on their shoulders. They rode hard, knowing the townspeople would soon be on their trail. As the sun rose higher, they glanced back to see a group of riders closing in. The peace of Serenity was a fragile illusion, maintained by the blood of those who dared to disrupt it. Jack and Billy had escaped, but they knew they would never truly be free from the horrors they had witnessed in that seemingly idyllic town. They rode on, the memory of Serenity a constant reminder that the Old West held dangers far more sinister than gunfights and outlaws. In the end, it was the dark hearts of men that posed the greatest threat of all.